So hello everyone. So today's topic is on demystifying Magento performance by Hashid Hameed. So he is from Codilar. Over to you, Hashid. You can start your.
Thank you, Shubham, for that very quick introduction. And before I start, big thanks to the entire Magento team and Vijay Golani for arranging this year. It's really a pleasure to be part of this event. So the topic that I'm going to talk about today is, as you can see on the screen, is this demystifying Magento performance. So basically, I'll be taking a very high level approach on how to go about tuning Magento performance. Now, this is not a very technical, deep level presentation. We are looking at a 10,000 feet level. So it's very easy for the business folks, the merchant, marketing teams, any techno-functional guys, project managers, BAs, to easily understand what really happens, right? And we'll understand why it is important to even understand the behind the scenes. And obviously for developers also who want to understand the big picture, and basically we'll go back to the basics. All right. So before I go further, a little about me. My name is Hashid Hameed. I am a Magento enthusiast. I've been in the ecosystem for about now 8 to 9 years. And I'm very passionate about Magento. You can see me talking about Magento on my LinkedIn always. And I also happen to be the co-founder and CEO of Codilar. Codilar is an award-winning Adobe agency. We specialize in obviously Magento and PWA. Okay, so this is going to be my agenda. First, we'll take a look at what exactly is the slow Magento problem, and we'll look at the frustrations of Magento and what really is a solution. All right, and towards the end, I have a little surprise, like I always have on my talks. Okay, so let's get started. So if you're somebody in the Magento ecosystem, there is high chance that you have heard a lot of backlash, of people claiming that Magento is slow, Magento is heavy. There are a lot of haters, right? And obviously negativity spreads faster, right? So I really want to ask this question: is Magento really slow? Because if you take a look at some of the world's top e-commerce sites, which are doing tremendous amount of transactions, which are on Magento, right? And they don't have any problem. They're able to. I know a site which does about 500 checkouts per minute, right? So there is no problem, right? If somebody like that can run Magento without any problem, is really Magento the problem, right? So let's look at what are the factors which contribute to this negativity. All right. So these are some of the factors. First of all, Magento 2 was premature. We all know that, right? Magento 1 was very healthy and running fine. And suddenly there's this Magento 2 and there comes Magento 2 Cloud, and everything was too fast, right? I think Magento did not give it ample time to mature, and it just hit the market. Now, the initial merchants who went live faced a lot of problems. There was actually a lot of problems in Magento 2 Cloud, plus even Magento 2. It was very heavy, right? And people used to compare it to Magento 1, which was very light. That is number one problem. Second problem is that Magento is free, right? And this is actually the biggest benefit of Magento, but it also adds to this problem. The reason being, if you look at any software that is free or that is very affordable, right? The majority of the user spectrum are small businesses, and small businesses usually don't have the right resources to invest in right technology team and have the right tools and all the expertise, right? So they go about doing a shabby job of the platform, and the platform struggles. Now, this, if you compare to a platform like Shopify, is not a problem because Shopify is also cheap, and majority of the users are on their first plan, I think, which is some $29 per month. But since it does not have any flexibility and you don't get access to the code, there is nothing much a merchant can do about it, right? So you cannot do much wrong in Shopify, which is why it does not struggle. So if you look at the spectrum of both Magento users and Shopify users, there's large, small business users or micro users which keep complaining, right? And they believe that Magento is a problem, right? And the third thing is obviously the customization, which we all know. It can be customized to the core. You can turn it to whatever you want. Now, that also means that there's a high possibility a developer goes and changes things in the wrong places in the wrong way. And fourth thing is basically, even if you're not a small business, you're a big business, but if you have the mentality of looking at e-commerce development as a cost and try to develop in the least cost possible. So then you will go out and get your work done by an inexperienced team who does not know how to build a proper Magento. Then your platform struggles, right? Now the blame is not on Magento; it's basically your decision of having gone to a low experience team. And the fifth thing is that this is the most funniest thing that I have seen. Most business I've seen that they'll take months and months, not if not years, to decide that they have to go online, to decide which platform they'll choose, to decide the agency and all that. So they'll take a lot of time, right? Now, once they decide and give the project to the agency, they are like, okay, give me the website in 2 months or 3 months. And they put a lot of pressure on the developers, and developers give into it because of multiple reasons. Maybe they don't have enough projects or whatever. And then the developers cut corners, and again, the platform struggles. Now, end of the day, everybody blames Magento for this problem, right? Now, in between all this, the person who gets stuck is the business, is the merchant, right? He does not know what really is going on. All he sees is the Google page speed score, and which is showing a lot of low scores, and his customers are complaining, his conversion is dropping, and he does not understand actually where is the problem, right? And because most business owners or even marketing teams, or let's say head of e-commerce of any company, are not really technical, right? So they don't know where the problem is, right? So they go to the hosting team if they're on community, or they're hosting enterprise edition on their own, and the hosting guy says we are all fine. It's the developers who did a very crappy code, and your website is struggling because of that. Now you go to developers say, no, we have written the most beautiful code on earth, but your hosting guys are not taking care of it properly, right? Or some of the developers might say the previous developers who worked on the website wrote a shitty code, and we are struggling because of that. Now you have to build everything. So the merchant is like totally now frustrated without having any data, what is happening now, who should he go to and all that, right? So this is the problem that we are going to address today. So the solution is very, very simple. The first thing is that anybody who's owns the success of e-commerce store, or let's say even if you're a developer, right, it's very important to understand the entire flow of what all things are happening, what is happening in behind the scenes, right? So when you understand that, you will understand what all components are involved basically in performance. Now, performance is not a single piece of thing, right? There are a lot of components involved. So you need to understand what all components are there. And then once you understand, then you can actually monitor each of these components for bottleneck, right? And you need different sort of experts for each of these bottlenecks. One person cannot do the job. Now, once you understand the bottleneck, then you can go about tuning it, right? And the third thing is, it's not a one-time job. You have to make it like a process, because it's not like you do a performance optimization today and just forget it, because your platform keeps evolving, a lot of features being added, there's a lot of data that's coming in. So it has to be a process. Okay, so let's understand a basic flow of a website, a Magento website, you can say. Now, this is very important. I've oversimplified it. There are a lot of things, other things that is happening, but let's understand this for now. Okay, so let's say a user is basically sitting on his laptop and entering www.abcstore.com. So what happens is this abcstore.com is converted to an IPA by a DNS server and all that, which is not mandatory to understand right now. Now, basically, your request goes and hits server, right? Now the server knows that, okay, what is this guy requesting for? For example, if the person has typed abcstore.com / let's say some category, now the server basically takes this request, understand what really it has to do to give the response the user is accepting, right? Now there are a lot of things that are moving parts that is there here inside this, right? So first there is the infrastructure, right, which is your hosting setup, right? And then there is a web server, there is a database, and there is a Magento application code, right? So now what the server does is, server basically takes the Magento code. There are actually thousands and thousands of files and lines. Now it processes all this and basically comes with the output. First, maybe the data output, and that is basically rendered into a front-end code, right? Now this is the output that you're going to get from this entire piece, right? Now this has to be transferred back to the user, right? So now that is the response that comes, basically the HTTP response, right? So that has a front-end code in it, all right? Now that front-end code comes to the browser. Now browser also has to do actually a lot of processing to show this front-end code to the user in the proper way, right? So now a full circle if you hit any page, this full circle is complete. Now for the user, he does not care about what is really happening in the background, right? So basically for the user, the moment he hits the URL now, and what comes in front of his browser, how fast it comes and how smooth it loads, that is called perceived performance. So you can have the fastest servers, you can have the best code, everything, but as long as the user does not feel the performance, right? It's a feeling. then your perceived performance, you don't have perceived performance, right? So even if the numbers show really great, your user is not going to be happy. All right. So in this, let's break down. So basically, the main components are one. Obviously, the user's browser can be a component, right? Now, if the user is hitting the website from a let's say a low-end phone, right, which does not have proper resources, then whatever website is going to load, that's going to load very slow for him. So let's not care about that right now, because that's not something that is in our control. So the components that we have in our control is one, the infrastructure, which I'll talk about in the upcoming slides, and then the Magento code, right? So by infrastructure, what I mean is your app server, database, and CPU RAM, all that we'll discuss now. Then there is this big Magento code that is an application that is there. Now that can be a big bottleneck. And the front end code, right? So front end code, when it comes back to the browser, when it comes back to the browser, now browser actually has to process all this, right? If that code is also not optimized, then a bottleneck can happen there. Okay. Now I want to make it more simple. I don't think I can make it more simple by taking a restaurant analogy. Okay. So consider you're going to a restaurant, right? Basically, the user is now sitting with his laptop with his browser open. Consider the browser is it's not a perfect analogy. There can be a lot of loopholes, but consider that browser is a waiter. Okay. Now the user is basically the customer is placing his request to the waiter saying that, okay, I want these items. Now what the browser does is the browser basically the waiter, okay, the request basically goes to the kitchen, right? Now in kitchen there are a lot of things. There is a big infrastructure. There is stove, there is vessels, there is fridge, there is oven, and everything. This is your infra. Okay. Now the code is basically whatever you have requested, right? Now there needs to be a recipe for whatever items you have, right? So that recipe is a code, right? And now that recipe is prepared by chefs. Chefs are nothing but our developers, right? So a good chef can write a very good recipe which is fast and produces really tasty food. A bad chef can write code which takes a lot of time to get the same product, and it may not be even tasty, right? Now, after the kitchen cooks the food, the customer cannot eat it, right? Immediately. So he cannot experience it. Now the waiter has to bring the food back to his table, right? Even after the waiter reaches at this table, he still cannot eat. It has just reached his browser. Now it also depends on the waiter how fast he puts all the plates on the table, and how fast he serves the dish to the user. Only after he serves, the user can start eating, right? Now that's why I said even the browser and even the front end plays a very vital role in perceived performance. Okay, so that's a very, very simple explanation that I can give. So let's go forward. Okay, now the important things to note here is that no single tool can pinpoint bottleneck, right? Because this is spread across different stuff. So there is users browser, there is infrastructure, there is Magento code, there is DB, there is this, and there is front-end code is browser. There are different stuff, right? And these are happening in different areas. So one tool cannot actually pinpoint the bottleneck, right? You need actually different sets of tools, and you need different experts also to even identify where the bottleneck is, right? So if you're just sitting on Google PageSpeed and going to a developer, you may not even understand where the problem is, right? So that's what I said in the. So it's not a one man job. Right? So now let's understand what all the components involved. So the main components are that we are going to talk about is infra, not much of infra also, but mostly backend, front end code or experience, and we'll look at caching. Okay, how caching plays a role in all of these things. So infrastructure is nowadays very abstracted, right? Let's say you are on Adobe Commerce Cloud, you don't even have to care about what the infra is, right? And even there are a lot of other platforms which will allow you to do that. But let's say you are hosting it on your with your own team, or you're going with somebody like, let's say, our own Pradeep's Luro Connect and all. Then basically whatever the resources of the infrastructure really matters, right? The CPU power matters, the RAM matters, the disk, all that matters, right? Now your app server and database, is your Nginx tuned properly? Is your database tuned properly? Is the database maintenance done properly? All that matters, right? Because just imagine if the kitchen has only, let's say, one oven and one stove, how can it basically cater so many parallel requests that's coming from so many of the customers in the restaurant? You cannot. So you need to have enough resources to ensure that you are able to meet the demand. So resource also very important, right? But usually this is not a bottleneck because it has been solved many times for different sort of web applications, right? And there are a lot of experts in this area. And the third thing is obviously physical location of the server, right? So let's say you're sitting in India, but your servers are in UK. Every request has to travel to US and come back, right? So basically there is network latency. Now it will be in milliseconds, but every millisecond matters. That's how you can have an overall impact on performance. All right. So the biggest bottleneck happens here in Magento application code. Now, so let's look at, I'll simplify. Let's look at what are the, like from my experience, these are the biggest bottlenecks that I've seen. There could be more, right? One is Magento is a big, huge platform, right? And I don't know any merchant who uses all of the features of Magento. You cannot use it. So there are a lot of unused Magento modules out there. So you need to remove them. I mean, you need to disable them. That should not be part of your application, right? So there are ways to do that. So that is one. Then using an extension for every damn thing, right? So merchants are like, I need this feature. So they take a big extension, which that feature might be a small part of the extension. They might not even use the other parts now. So when you bloat your Magento with a lot of third-party extensions, basically you're adding fuel to the problem. And third thing is some of these extensions are very poorly written also. So it can have performance impact. We have all seen this, right? And the fourth thing, basically, I really have to call this out is basically, so let's say a user is basically request something that is outside your Magento, an external API in your synchronous request. Okay, for example, let's say a user is placing an order. Okay, now you have some system, let's say an ERP or something. As soon as the order is placed, you have to hit that ERP with the order. Now, a very wrong way to do it is in the order flow itself. Let's say user is clicking on place order, you are processing the order, and then you are synchronously sending a request to that ERP and waiting for the response, and then you finish the order, right? So what happens if the ERP is slow, right? So then it sort of waits and waits and waits. So which adds to your time. So the ideal way to do is basically using queuing, which is there in Magento 2, or you can use cron job. So your order process can be done just like that without worrying about the ERP, and this can be added to the queue. So maybe a couple of seconds later that will happen separately, so that the user's experience is not trouble. Okay. Now the most easy metric to track whether your infra plus your Magento application code is proper is look at the time to first byte. Time to first byte means I'll just go back. So after the request goes to this place, now how much time it takes to give a response, to generate this front end code and give a response. So that is time to first byte. Now, if you have bottleneck in any of these places, your time to first byte will be very high. Okay, so nowadays I think about 500 to 800 seconds I think is considered okay. Now this is without having a full page cache or varnish, right? So you need to check this. Then the next thing is front-end experience. Now, most Magento developers that I've seen really don't care about front-end experience, okay? Because they are actually, when you say Magento developer, you just think about backend. Now, this front-end code is where actually, in my opinion, most of the perceived performance or user experience really matters on this, because even if the the response is immediately generated and it's there on the user's browser, just imagine you're going to a website and it starts loading. Okay, so first some picture came, then it shifted below, and something else came, and there's a lot of things jumping and some images are loading, and you're not able to even click. You feel that okay, there are so many things loading and you're just waiting for it, right? Now this is not because of your backend code or for infra. This is because your front end code is really poorly written. Now these are some of the reasons. So one is your HTML CSS is not clean. So mostly you would have used some theme available in some marketplace. You just went for the looks of it. You don't know what kind of code is written in the back. And to make it worse, you actually added a lot of customization on top of it. Now the browser has to load your default theme and then again put your customization on top of it, which makes it very, very heavy. Then not using proper bundling, because Magento comes with a lot of JavaScript, right? And you don't need all of this in every places. So you need to have proper bundling to ensure that only the required stuff is loaded everywhere, and it does a lot of minification, merging, and all those things, right? And third thing is CDN. Now CDN is also affects the front end experience, right? So I don't want to go in deep. So basically, how a website works is the first request has to go to the server, and the response comes. So in the response, basically there are a lot of static assets that you need. So you need images, you need videos, and all that. Now, all those requests actually don't have to go to the server because there is no logic to process, right? It can be stored somewhere else. You have to just call that image and get it. You call, ask for the image, you get it. So that can be distributed in a CDN. And the advantage is that CDN can be close to your user. So you'll get immediately, right? And the fourth thing which really improves experience is image optimization. So there are lots of tools available right now which can identify the user, what sort of device he's on, what sort of connection he has, and for the viewport that he's seeing, what is actually the image size required, right? So since there are tools like this, it can optimize the image and give the lightest image for you. So let's say somebody is visiting a PDP page on an iMac and one guy is visiting on a low-end phone. Okay, so on an iMac the thumbnail might be really large, but on the phone it might be small, right? But if you don't have intelligent image optimization, you would send the same large image to both of these guys, and this guy struggles. So you need to send only a tiny image, right? So you have to automate it. And obviously the next thing is lazy loading, right? So which most of the guys are doing right now. So you have to basically show the above the page fold initially, and the remaining stuff when the user scrolls, you have to lazy load, right? Now the fifth thing is that front-end engineering, it's an ocean. I mean, front-end performance engineering itself is an ocean, right? So every element and every section on your page can be tuned separately. For example, let's say you have a carousel. Something that we did on one of our projects was that they had a carousel on every page. That was a requirement, and that used to come on top, right? Now that was very JavaScript heavy. So what we saw was that the page actually loads, but this thing that comes on top was the last thing to load. Okay, so and that basically affected the perceived performance because everything else was loaded. Whatever the user wanted was loaded, but since this loaded last, user felt that okay, the page has not loaded. So basically we thought that okay, what we did was we, instead of loading the carousel, we loaded the first slide as an image. Okay, and the page was loaded. Now user does not feel that okay, page is not loaded. And in the background, we loaded the carousel. Once that was ready, we replaced this image with the carousel without the user noticing. So these are some logics that you can apply to your front end, right? So similarly, you can do various lots of things in the front end to keep optimizing it. And obviously, the metrics that you can look at for front end is your core web vitals, which is basically given by Google. So one is cumulative layout shift, which shows if your layout is shifting too much. And next is largest contentful print. So on any page, the primary content has to load very quickly, right? Then the third is first input delay. How long the user has to wait before he can interact? How long he has to wait to start eating his dish? Okay, so that is first input delay. And these are very easy to track. To an extent with Lighthouse and Google PageSpeed. Okay, I just want to look at my time. Okay, I have 5 moments. So the next important thing is caching. Okay, now caching, let's look at this image. So caching can be applied anywhere and is being applied. So even the user's browser has caching, DNS has caching, your server, database, everything has caching. And most of the things, these things are taken care automatically. Now, two things are not taken care automatically. One is your basically the caching of this response, this front end code, right, which this entire infra and your Magento code is generating, that has to be cached, and that is because that is the biggest bottleneck. And one more thing that can be cached is your front end. So you can use service workers and cache pages, but which may not be recommended for e-commerce because it's very dynamic, right? But still you can do it, and for example, progressive web apps can do that easily. So basically, you need something called varnish. Now, what does varnish do? So varnish comes and sits here outside your Magento application, outside your server, outside your DB, everything. Now it is a separate server on its own. It's a reverse proxy. Now all of the users' requests go here to varnish. Now varnish checks, do I have the response of this request already with me? If no, it sends a request to here, gets a response, it keeps it with him, and sends one to the user. Next time it gets a similar response, it does not put the route the request back to this place, Magento. It just serves the response from there itself. Now that is a big performance boost that you'll get, right? Because you are not touching the database, you're not even executing a single line of code, right? Okay, so which can actually give at least 10x, even more than 10x. So the results of varnish will be very high depending on how bad your Magento code is. Okay. So now in varnish, there are a couple of things that you have to take care. So one is proper setup and vSkill configuration, and one is distributed varnish. So if you have users from different parts of the world, you can basically distribute your varnish so that wherever the user is, he gets the varnish response from a region nearby. Now that can be killer. Okay, which is what Fastly does. That's why you see Adobe Commerce Cloud websites are super fast. And controlling the purge, I'll not talk about it because of time. It's basically, you don't have to refresh the Magento cache always. You don't have to follow its logic. So depending on what your business, what time it changes, you can control the purge, right? And fourth thing is cache warming. Now, this is a beautiful concept. So basically, what warming means, you can manually hit the pages on your website by running a script or by running a bot, and ensure that all of your pages are warmed so that an actual user comes and hits that page. You don't have to execute all the logic. The varnish can simply give the response. So none of the users will feel that the website is slow. This is a perfect band-aid for your Magento performance call. Now, the one mistake that people do with warming is they write scripts which continuously warms all of the pages in Magento, and that pulls the site down, which is a paradox, right? Now, this is why I'm coming to a surprise that we have. So we have built something called a smart cache warmer. It's in an alpha stage now, but we have had successes with it. So what it does is, it's a cache warmer tool which sits outside your Magento application. It's a SaaS tool. It's intelligent. So it knows which page is not warmed right now, not in cache. It knows that. And then it goes and caches it. Now, when it goes and caches, it does not go and bombard all this. It has a priority depending on what the user is most likely to visit based on your traffic data. Okay. And it also looks at your health of your server. Basically, if the server is getting too much load from the warmer or otherwise, it does not hamper. So this sort of intelligent warming we have. And you can do a multi-country warming also. So let's say you have different responses or this one for different IPs. So because our SaaS software is outside Magento, we can do that. So it's something that we are building. We have already had success. So if you want to test it out with us in beta, please reach out to me. Okay, and I would like to end with some common mistakes. So performance, as I said earlier, is not a one-time job. You have to continuously do it. And second thing, what merchants do is they obsess on page speed. So they don't care about the perceived performance or what users really experience. They are just looking at the score and saying, no, the score is not, the score is not, the score is not. They don't even know what the users are feeling, which is why you should obviously look at page speed, because they'll reveal something, right? But actually what the users are feeling cannot be done with page speed, because that's a lab test, right? You have to do a field test. Now, so for that, there are different tools. So you can use Chrome's Crux tool, or you can use New Relic's browser. So there are a lot of tools. So it actually looks at what the user is experiencing, right? So that is one. And third thing is that PW is a different ballgame. PW works in a very different way, not this flow that I said. There are a lot of differences. Now, measuring PWA's performance on page speed is also not a good idea, because in PWA, you hit a URL, the rendering happens for once, and next time you click, the page does not load. You get immediate results, right? But when you test in page speed, you're going to paste the URLs of all of this separately, and it basically calculates time for the full rendering, which is wrong, which is not what your users are feeling. And the fourth thing, which is a funny thing, developers, I've seen that they test only the homepage and say, oh, scores are very good. But homepage is not the place where your users are spending time, right? It's mostly PLP and PDP. And most people actually talk about mobile first and all, but they just worry about desktop because that's what they're using in their office. And last thing is testing performance of only warmed pages. So if you're using Varnish and the pages are warmed, obviously it'll be very fast. So if you're just testing that, that will not give a full picture, because a lot of your users will be seeing unwarmed pages if you're not using a smart cache warming. Yeah, I think I hit the goal. I have 2 more minutes. So yeah, so that's all, guys. Thank you for listening with so much patience. If there are any questions which I can handle in 2 minutes, that'll be good.
Hello, Hashid.
Yeah, I'm reading the question. So, which is a 500 per checkout, but I cannot reveal that. I'm sorry. You can start Q&A. Sometimes still facing like loading pages in local host. You reach out to me personally, I'll tell you that. Okay, I cannot have the same public. Even in developer mode with cache, please reach out to my developer. I stopped coding 2 years ago. I'm a techno-functional guy now. I know how things work, but not. I cannot give you technical answers. Okay, you are asking local host in developer mode. So one of our developers can help you. How to optimize more than 5 lakhs plus products? Guys, these are all, it will take a lot of time to even drill down to all this. Is Google Page actually showing correct performance? So Google Page is showing lab data. Basically, it depends on, it's sending a request from Google's bot and seeing, right? So for actual numbers, you can use Neuralix browsers. If you're on Adobe Commerce, you have that free, or you can use Google's Chrome's Crux tool, CRUX. It's called Chrome User Experience Report. Okay, so basically the browser is recording the actual experience of users across the globe now, and Google is now giving that data for free in their data studio. So you can go there and see what your users are really experiencing for free. Okay. Yeah, I think I've answered my question. So, Shubham, back to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Ashid. It was a wonderful event. Thank
Yeah,
you all for
thank you so
attending
much.
this event.
Thank you, everybody. Have
Yeah.
a great day. Bye bye.
Thank you.